Judge Grayson thought he was dealing with just another clueless kid, until the boy started tearing the case apart like a pro. The Los Angeles courtroom was heavy with tension. Spectators packed the benches, murmuring as they watched the scene unfold. At the defendant's table stood a young man who looked too small for the space, hands in his pockets, chin lifted just enough to show defiance. Jalen Dawson, 19. Charged with grand theft auto and resisting arrest. Serious crimes, but the way Judge Walter Grayson eyed him made it clear this wasn't just about the law. Grayson leaned back in his chair, fingers tapping lazily against the desk. He peered down at Jalen over his glasses, mouth curling into something between a smirk and a sneer. "You think you're some kind of legal expert?" His voice dripped with amusement. "This isn't debate club, kid." A few chuckles spread through the room. The bailiff, the stenographer, even the prosecutor. They were all in on the joke. But Jalen didn't laugh. He had spent years preparing for this moment. Not this exact one. He never planned to be the one on trial, but he knew courtrooms better than most. While other kids memorized sports stats, he memorized case law. While his friends played video games, he ran mock trials in his head, arguing imaginary cases. His mother, Denise Dawson, had been a paralegal for 20 years. Jalen grew up on her stories, how prosecutors cut corners, how judges played favorites, how some defense lawyers barely tried. By 14, he could dissect a trial better than most law students. But none of that mattered to Grayson. To him, Jalen was just another delinquent. "Let's make this quick," the judge sighed, flipping open the file. "I've got a golf game at 2. Another round of laughter. Then something shifted. A faint smirk tugged at Jalen's lips, because Grayson had just made his first mistake. But the courtroom hadn't noticed yet. Prosecutor Mitchell Carrington stood, crisp suit, perfect tie, oozing the confidence of a man who'd already won. "Your Honor, the state will prove beyond any doubt that Jalen Dawson was caught in a stolen 2022 Audi A6, reported missing hours before his arrest. Officers pursued him through downtown where he attempted to flee. His prints were on the wheel. The evidence speaks for itself." The words hit hard. The crowd stirred. On the surface, it sounded open and shut. A stolen car, a chase, a runaway. Judge Grayson glanced at Jalen over his glasses, then nodded at Carrington. "Go on." The prosecutor stepped toward the jury box. The prosecutor's polished shoes clicked against the floor. "The defense might try to sell you some story that Mr. Dawson is just an unlucky victim of bad timing." He turned, locking eyes with Jalen for the first time. "But let's be real. What kind of victim runs from the cops?" The air in the courtroom grew heavier. Judge Grayson propped his chin on his hand, watching. Jalen didn't flinch. Carrington flipped through his papers. "Your Honor, I have Officer Daniel Ruiz's sworn testimony. He saw the defendant behind the wheel before he tried to run. The car was stolen. The arrest was clean." Grayson exhaled, nodding. Seemed simple enough. And to most people it did. The case looked airtight. Stolen car, police chase, arrest. But Jalen knew better. He'd spent too many years dissecting trials not to spot the flaws. Still he waited, silent, watching. Judge Grayson tapped his gavel. "All right, let's hear from the defense." He turned to Jalen's lawyer, Lisa Thornton, a public defender who'd barely spoken since walking in. She stood, fidgeting. "Your Honor, my client—" Jalen rested a hand on her arm, a quiet signal. She paused, then sat back down. Then Jalen spoke. "I'll be representing myself, Your Honor." The room went dead silent. Grayson stared, amused. "You'll—" "What?" "I'll be handling my own defense." A ripple of murmurs spread. The bailiff's eyes widened. Carrington's smirk slipped, just for a second, before he snorted. "This ought to be good." But nobody laughed, because when Jalen stepped forward, everything shifted. He let the silence stretch just long enough to unsettle them, before speaking. Your Honor, before I begin, I'd like to clarify something with the prosecution. Carrington crossed his arms. Go ahead. Jalen took a slow step. You said Officer Ruiz personally saw me driving before my arrest, correct? That's right, Carrington said, impatient. It's in his report. Of course it is. Jalen turned to the judge. Your Honor, I move to strike that testimony from evidence. Grayson frowned. On what grounds? Jalen pulled his hands from his pockets for the first time and gestured at the prosecution. Because Officer Ruiz never saw me in that car. He wasn't even on duty when the chase started. Carrington's face twitched. What the hell are you talking about? Jalen took another step. Your Honor, I request access to Officer Ruiz's GPS logs from that night. If his report says he saw me, then his location data should match. He let the words linger, sharp as a blade. I don't think we'll need to wait long. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Judge Grayson's frown deepened as he turned to Carrington. The prosecutor cleared his throat, jaw clenched. Your Honor, that report was filed by a sworn officer. Are we really going to doubt a professional's word over a defendant's? Jalen shrugged, calm. If the officer was where he said, the GPS will confirm it. If not, he let the implication hang. Grayson studied him, then eyed Carrington. Any objection to checking the logs? That half-second pause said everything. The jury noticed. The gallery noticed. Grayson noticed. Jalen exhaled silently. Years of studying trials had taught him one truth. A confident prosecutor doesn't hesitate. No objection, Your Honor, Carrington finally said. But the damage was done. The laughter had died. Now the silence was deafening. Carrington shuffled papers, his polished demeanor fraying. Your Honor, regardless of GPS, the defendant's prints were on the steering wheel. True, Jalen cut in, stepping forward. But let's examine what that actually means. Grayson waved him on. Jalen faced the jury, locking eyes with each one. The prosecution wants you to believe fingerprints equal guilt, but think, if you try on a jacket in a store, touch the zipper, check the pockets, then someone later steals it, does that make you the thief? A juror shifted. Someone in the back whispered. Jalen didn't pause. The car was parked outside a 7-Eleven for hours. I leaned on it, opened the unlocked door. A dumb kid move, not a crime. He let that sink in, then delivered the knife. Does touching something make you guilty? Carrington scrambled through his notes. Jalen struck harder. Your Honor, was the fingerprint analyst subpoenaed to testify? Grayson looked to Carrington. Oh no, the prosecutor admitted. Jalen's gaze sharpened. So the state relies on forensic evidence, but won't let me question its validity. No chain of custody review, no cross-examination. Carrington's temple pulsed. Grayson rubbed his forehead, the look of a man realizing this wasn't the open and shut case he'd expected. But Jalen wasn't finished. He took one deliberate step forward. Your Honor, I'd like to submit a statement from the car's owner. Judge Grayson's frown deepened. The owner? Jalen nodded. Yes. Mr. Raymond Whitaker, the man who actually owns that Audi, gave a statement to police that somehow never made it into the prosecution's files. He turned to Carrington. Do you remember what he told officers the night his car was stolen? Carrington's jaw locked. He knew exactly where this was going. Jalen didn't wait. He pulled a transcript from his folder and read aloud. I left my car running when I ran into the gas station. Some kid must have hopped in and taken off, but it wasn't the guy you arrested. I saw him. He was white. The courtroom erupted. Jalen held the paper higher. That's from the original police report, the one the prosecution conveniently left out. He turned back to Grayson. The arresting officer admitted this. The prosecution ignored it. And now they want this jury to believe I, someone who doesn't even match the description, am guilty beyond doubt. Carrington lunged forward. Your Honor, this is irrelevant. The defendant was found— No. Jalen cut in, voice razor-sharp. I wasn't. I was arrested, blocks away from where that car was abandoned, walking home with snacks, not running, not driving. The only thing tying me to this case— He let the words hang. Bad police work. And assumptions. Judge Grayson exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. The case was collapsing in real time. Jalen faced the jury. The real thief got away. Cops saw a black kid in the area and called it close enough. That's what this really is. Silence. Grayson adjusted his glasses. Prosecution? Anything further? Carrington stood rigid, face flushed. No, Your Honor. The judge studied Jalen, then the jury, before speaking the words that would echo through the room. Case dismissed. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then quiet chaos. Gasps, reporters scrambling, the gallery buzzing. Jalen didn't react. He let it all sink in. Judge Grayson gripped his gavel, staring at Jalen with something new in his eyes. Respect. And maybe regret. As Jalen turned to leave, Grayson called out, Mr. Dawson? Jalen paused but didn't turn. You should consider law school. Jalen almost smiled. He didn't need to consider it. Outside the courthouse. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted, Did you know the judge would rule this way? What's next? How does it feel outmaneuvering a prosecutor? Jalen tugged his hoodie up, ignoring them. This wasn't about glory. At the bottom of the steps, his mother, Denise, waited, arms crossed, face unreadable. Then she shook her head. Boy, you scared me half to death. Jalen grinned. Had to take the shot, Ma. She yanked him into a hug, muttering, Stubborn as always. The real lesson. Across the street, Judge Grayson watched from his car. Arrogance gone. This case was supposed to be routine, but Jalen had forced the system to look itself in the mirror. And for once, it flinched. How many others had been convicted not by evidence, but by bias, by lazy police work, by a system that cared more about closing cases than what truth would? Jalen had the tools to fight back. But what about those who didn't? This wasn't the end. Next time, he wouldn't be the defendant. He'd be the lawyer. And he wouldn't be alone. If this story made you think, even for a second, about how the system really works, share it. Because next time, it might not be Jalen. It might be someone you know.